Kim Sung-ryong, a supremely skilled accountant in the art of embezzlement, gives the police a run for their money. Despite their relentless efforts to find loopholes and bring him in for questioning on tax evasion, he's released. Sulking, Sung-ryong complains about being treated like a terrorist before he could even finish his delicious noodles. The apologetic police officers respectfully ask him to leave. Sung-ryong is then ceremoniously greeted by his boss and his entourage, celebrating their victory with attractive women. Meanwhile, Ha Kyung and her team work late into the night due to their supervisor, Mr. Lee, taking a leave of absence. Unbeknownst to them, a troubled Mr. Lee has fled to the edge of a forest. The next morning, a local resident discovers him attempting suicide and rushes to his aid. News outlets report that a division head of a conglomerate, later identified as TQ Group, was found hanging from a tree but rescued before death. A suicide note found in his car leads the police to conclude it was a suicide attempt. The Central District Prosecutor's Office is furious. With Mr. Lee unconscious, they've lost their only inside informant against TQ Group. Back with Sung-ryong, he catches a fellow accountant falsifying records, scaring the man into begging for mercy. Favoring mutually beneficial relationships, Sung-ryong proposes a partnership, suggesting they share the spoils. At the same time, one of the boss's underlings gossips about how Sung-ryong could betray them at any moment to save himself. The boss, aware of this underling's own embezzlement, points out the significant tax savings Sung-ryong has secured for the company. The underling then mentions rumors of the boss being a figurehead while Sung-ryong holds the real power. While dismissing it in front of his men, the boss keeps a watchful eye on Sung-ryong. The next day, the Central District Prosecutor's Office raids and investigates TQ Group. While dining with his boa constrictor, the chairman of TQ Group is certain Mr. Lee must have left something behind. They decide to replace him with someone obedient and unprincipled, a pawn they can use and discard without a second thought. Sung-ryong, meanwhile, waxes lyrical about his dream of immigrating to Denmark. Although challenging, he believes a large sum of money is all he needs. Once settled in Denmark, he plans to go straight and live a happy life. The next day, he discovers his supposed partner has betrayed him, now protected by burly guards. He confronts his boss only to be fired, ostensibly to encourage him to become a more upstanding citizen. Later, his secretary informs him about a division head opening at TQ Group, a perfect fit for someone with his skills. Despite their size, the conglomerate only requires a test and an interview. Feigning disinterest, Sung-ryong secretly checks the job posting. He realizes TQ Group is massive, with 11 subsidiaries and billions in revenue. Controlling their business affairs division would make him rich quickly. He immediately begins studying for the upcoming test. The following day, a confident Sung-ryong arrives at TQ Group for the test. Ha Kyung receives a notice about a complaint filed against her for insubordination by none other than the annoying accounting manager she recently argued with. Despite her defiance, a 30% pay cut and 30 hours of community service force her to comply. Sung-ryong uses his sharp intellect to complete the test, surprising everyone by submitting it early. Later, Ha Kyung and Sung-ryong have lunch at a convenience store, both in contrasting moods. Ha Kyung struggles with a 5-page, size 4 font self-criticism essay, while Sung-ryong revels in his bright future. He accidentally flicks a chopstick into Ha Kyung's noodles, igniting her fury. She berates him and storms off, neither of them aware they are about to become colleagues. Unfazed, Sung-ryong attends his interview, putting on a dramatic performance of familial devotion. Sensing a mismatch in their personalities, he tearfully recounts the benefits TQ Group provides and his desire to contribute, almost signing a blood oath on the spot, much to everyone's astonishment. Outside, he drops the act as if nothing happened. At this point, Ha Kyung received a tip-off that Director Lee had been driven to his death, not a suicide. Meanwhile, Kim Sung-ryong received news of his transfer to TQ, likely meaning China, while Seo Yeol resigned to become a director at a large corporation. Despite working in the supposedly clean judicial system, Seo Yeol had a rude awakening literally. A few slaps woke him up. He realized he'd rather live amongst the trash than be a hypocrite. Kim Sung-ryong packed his belongings, preparing for his journey to riches. He took one last look at his room, the place his father chose to remain and work with integrity. His secretary tearfully bid farewell to her senior, practically drowning in sorrow. The main character quickly arrived in Seoul to start his new journey and immediately ran into the woman he'd met earlier at the convenience store. They both grabbed for the last rice ball, neither willing to yield. Ultimately, Ha Kyung emerged victorious, clutching the prize. They ended up walking the same route to work, much to Ha Kyung's annoyance. Assuming the creep was following her, she alerted security to stop him. Being his first day, he didn't have an employee ID card, and coupled with the accusation of harassment, he was blocked at the entrance. After much difficulty, he finally reached his office, only to run into the woman again. Seeing Ha Kyung berate him as a pervert stalking her, the entire office braced for a confrontation. He then announced he was the new department head, surprising everyone. They offered a half-hearted welcome to their new boss, who returned their greeting with disdain. Everyone else in the office quietly resumed their work. First, Nam Ho, presumably Kim Sung Ryung, pulled out the company organizational chart, explaining the hierarchy and pointing out the key players. Those below the red line were to obey those above without question. If any unusual losses occurred, we have to be creative. Just then, the chairman announced that Director Seo would oversee auditing and investment. Outwardly, Seo Yun had a reputation for integrity, but he was secretly adept at manipulating financial records. Seo Yun announced a major project for the accounting department. Meanwhile, Kim Sung Ryung realized his department was a chaotic mess, trampled by higher-ups. Suddenly, he received a summons to the 24th floor. Seo Yun, recognizing him, alluded to the fact that Nam Ho's previous investigation was too clean, hindering their own efforts. Feigning ignorance, Nam Ho played dumb. Seo Yun proposed a deal. Nam Ho could embezzle freely, as long as he wasn't caught red-handed. In return, he had to perform a secret task, divulging no information to anyone. The accounting director would reveal explosive secrets the next day. Kim Sung Ryung, completely bewildered, felt like someone had attempted to use a bidet but only managed to spray his thigh, incredibly frustrating and itchy. Returning to his office, he invited everyone out for a celebratory dinner to welcome their new team leader. Only one naive junior accepted, keeping him company. Hearing the junior constantly mention his ex-girlfriend, Nam Ho pulled out a picture of his secretary and promised to set them up one day, puffing up the junior's ego. The next morning, the two were chatting amicably, irritating the rest of the team. They pulled the junior aside, demanding an explanation, and discovered he'd been bribed with the promise of a girlfriend. Outside, Director Lee's wife stopped the chairman's car, demanding justice for her husband. Alone, she was quickly dismissed by security. Seeing this, Ha Kyung rushed to help Director Lee's wife. Upon returning, she received a call from an unknown number requesting a meeting that evening. Meanwhile, Kim Sung Ryung met with the board of directors and received a USB drive. They informed him it contained documents from the previous year and instructions on what to do. They told him to simply create a lot of things and manage them as we instruct. Keep it secret, or it becomes front-page news. Nam Ho recognized their secretive demeanor as a sign of something shady, likely a large-scale theft. Alone in his office, he opened the files and was stunned by the contents. Long strings of numbers representing vast sums of money. He realized this was connected to the previous director's death. The next morning, he saw Director Lee's wife protesting in front of the building. After considering the risks, Kim Sung Ryung decided to earn $1 billion, likely a substantial sum, and quickly disappear. That evening, Ha Kyung met with the person who contacted her, the chairman's wife. Unexpectedly, she wanted to collaborate to find evidence of accounting fraud within the company, seeking justice for Director Lee's wife and exposing those responsible for TQ's decline. After some thought, Ha Kyung sent a message declining the offer. At the same time, Director Seo summoned Nam Ho to the rooftop, accusing him of stalling to embezzle funds before escaping. He threatened Nam Ho with severe consequences, eat 7 calendars, likely slang for a lengthy prison sentence if he didn't comply. He ordered him to quietly pocket the money and follow orders. Just then, a car sped towards Director Lee's wife. As Nam Ho stepped out, he tripped, inadvertently pushing her out of the way and taking the impact himself, sustaining serious injuries. Witnessing this, everyone hailed Kim Sung Ryung as a hero who saved the damsel in distress. When the male lead woke up, he found himself in the hospital, bandaged from head to toe. His older sister was protesting, and Ha Kyung was there too. She informed him he only had a mild concussion and needed 12 stitches. The media immediately reported on the hero who risked his life to save another, while Kim Sung-ryang acted childishly with his sister, demanding to be hand-fed. She curiously questioned whether his rescue was intentional or accidental. Seizing the opportunity, Kim Sung-ryang boasted that he genuinely wanted to save the person. After this incident, Ha Kyung reconsidered her stance and texted the chairman's wife to discuss the matter. Kim Sung-ryang's secretary complimented him, saying a chivalrous image would make embezzling easier. True to her words, the next morning at work, he was surrounded and cheered on like a true idol. Meanwhile, a power struggle was brewing within the chairman's faction. Director Seo and Jo Min-young were locked in a stalemate. Since Director Seo possessed documents exposing Jo Min-young's tax evasion, bribery, and illegal transfers, she was forced to remain silent. Director Seo then summoned the male lead to his office to discuss the heroic incident. He reiterated that Kim Sung-ryang should remain silent and avoid attracting public attention. At the same time, Hong Ka-yoon arrived at TQ as an intern, burdened with paperwork and menial tasks. She hadn't realized fighting for justice would be so difficult. It turned out the Central Prosecutor's Office had sent her undercover to investigate. The next day, the police summoned Kim Sung-ryang to meet the driver who hit him. He told Ha Kyung about it, but the driver showed no interest in settling the matter. Hearing this, Ha Kyung was furious and wanted to confront him. At the police station, the driver spoke arrogantly and defiantly, a true thug playing the victim. Upon learning that the driver had a long criminal record, Kim Sung-ryang had a realization. He asked to speak with the driver privately. He subtly inquired if TQ had hired him, but the driver denied it. Kim Sung-ryang then resorted to brandishing the criminal code, threatening him with a lengthy prison sentence if the truth came out. The gangster, slightly intimidated, confessed, giving Kim Sung-ryang leverage. He suggested the driver cooperate, share the money he received, and offer some compensation to the victim. The driver eventually agreed, and Ha Kyung left satisfied. Meanwhile, Director Seo, learning of the chaos within the company, sought a drink to calm his nerves. He happened to be standing where Ha Kyung was playing baseball. Watching her passionately engaged in the sport, Director Seo felt a flicker of attraction. The male lead returned home and prepared a meal as an offering to his deceased parents. He vowed not to live an honest life only to be crushed like his father. He would live ruthlessly, regardless of what others thought, even if his father disapproved. That night, Hong Ka-yoon met with her allies and received her mission, to befriend and investigate Kim Sung-ryang, the newly appointed head of the business department. The next morning, while washing his hair, the male lead's water was abruptly shut off, forcing him to go to work with a dirty head. While still annoyed, he was awarded the title of Employee of the Month and walked the red carpet to the applause of his colleagues. Ha Kyung, however, was reprimanded by the vice president for her alliance with the former department head's wife. He warned that if the wife caused trouble for the company, Ha Kyung's position would be jeopardized. Kim Sung-ryang went to lure his new prey in TQ's most powerful department and coincidentally ran into Hong Ka-yoon. They greeted each other warmly, both harboring ulterior motives. He then proceeded to win over the department members by sharing his bonus, a tactic that proved effective. Everyone except the materialistic Ha Kyung was delighted. That evening, Ha Kyung met with the chairman's wife to discuss the saboteur within the company. After witnessing the drunk driver's behavior and attitude, it seemed the chairman's wife's suspicions of sabotage were justified. She genuinely wanted Ha Kyung to find concrete evidence to expose them. Director Seo also secretly met with Kim Sung-ryang to warn him that knowing too much could be fatal. The next day, the department was in chaos due to end-of-month paperwork. The intern shyly asked Kim Sung-ryang for help with some documents. He readily agreed, but Ha Kyung disagreed, believing the intern should learn to be independent. They argued briefly before leaving the others to toil away. Outside, they had barely spoken a few words when they received news that the former secretary had been in an accident. Immediately afterward, the police arrived to arrest Kim Sung-ryang for tax evasion and document forgery. Ha Kyung informed her boss about the new department head and requested an investigation. The chairwoman, battling a serious illness, began the investigation. Meanwhile, the male lead, Kim Sung-ryang, was caught red-handed plagiarizing and manipulating the ledger. Suddenly, someone arrived and took him away. Ha Kyung discovered the new department head had a long history of tax evasion and accounting fraud, investigated annually. The older man brought Kim Sung-ryung to a desolate, abandoned building. Settling into a basement room, he calmly put on black gloves and asked if Kim Sung-ryung had copied the ledger. When Kim Sung-ryung answered no, he received a punch. Upon waking, Seo-yoon sat beside him, presenting forged documents created by Kim Sung-ryung himself. Having leverage, Seo-yoon refused to listen to any explanations, threatening to send him to jail. He reiterated that Kim Sung-ryung must be obedient and not act arrogantly. One wrong move, and the documents would be exposed, ruining his career. At this point, Kim Sung-ryung only pleaded for leniency for his former secretary. After their discussion, Seo-yoon demanded Kim Sung-ryung kneel and thank him, like a ritual from ancient royalty. Though ludicrous, Kim Sung-ryung complied to save himself. Simultaneously, Jo Min-young secretly orchestrated a report against Department Head Lee, aiming to oust Director Seo from the lucrative scheme. Ha Kyung met with a senior colleague with long experience in China, asking when the corporation went astray. He initially refused to answer, advising her to be realistic and level-headed. He compared them to small ducks struggling to stay afloat. However, after getting drunk, he revealed the corporation began its decline when the chairman took over and ousted his wife. It wasn't a voluntary resignation. The chairman exposed her illness to the board, forcing her out. Ha Kyung questioned how the company was still profitable. He revealed the company had been operating at a loss for 6 years, and the financial reports were fabricated. He warned her to stop inquiring or risk her life. Returning home, Kim Sung-ryung called his secretary, lamenting his predicament. She mentioned the luckiest man on the Titanic, the gambler who missed the boat because he lost his ticket. This sparked an idea. Kim Sung-ryung decided to leave the company discreetly. The next morning, he heard rumors of an employee assaulting a department head and being fired. Kim Sung-ryung seemed to have a plan forming. Meanwhile, Hong Ga-yoon acquired listening devices to monitor Kim Sung-ryung. She gave him the gift, insisting he open it immediately, causing a misunderstanding among those present. Ha Kyung contacted her senior colleague again, pressing him for the information he'd revealed the previous night. Though reluctant, he was compelled to elaborate, revealing 3 close confidants who influenced the chairman, including Director Seo-yoon, a renowned prosecutor specializing in accounting crimes. Seo-yoon was brought in because he understood how to embezzle without getting caught. He had entrusted Kim Sung-ryung with recreating the records, essentially forcing him to single-handedly rewrite the entire fraudulent accounting history. This solidified Kim Sung-ryung's resolve to abandon ship and protect himself. Returning to investigate Director Seo-yoon, Ha Kyung realized he was the man watching her play baseball the other day. Unaware that she had sparked his infatuation, she remained oblivious to Seo-yoon's frequent visits to the field, hoping to see her again. Ha Kyung met with the chairwoman and learned they planned to forge documents to pass the rigorous due diligence of Changlong-zeon. The chairwoman instructed Ha Kyung to keep a close eye on department head Kim Sung-ryung to gather crucial evidence. The following day, she demanded Kim Sung-ryung hand over all the documents to prevent him from tampering with them. Suddenly, the chairman's son stormed into the office, furious about his expense reports being rejected. Seizing the opportunity, Kim Sung-ryung confronted him, creating a chaotic scene. He even physically restrained the son, teaching him a lesson in respect. Though intimidated, the son threatened to complain to his father, the chairman. However, the chairman scolded his son instead. Jo Min-young tried to exploit the situation to get Director Seo's protege fired, but Seo-yoon, aware of her intentions to usurp him, remained determined to keep Kim Sung-ryung, regardless of her machinations. Ha Kyung was bewildered by Kim Sung-ryung's actions rescuing someone and then physically confronting the chairman's son. He didn't seem like an upstanding citizen. He then feigned distress about being fired, further confusing Ha Kyung. The next day, the chairman learned Changlong-zeon had postponed their plans due to false rumors. He sent Director Seo to appease them and reconsider. He then decided to hold Department Head Lee's wife legally responsible for spreading the defamatory rumors, promising to eradicate the issue completely. That evening, Seo-yoon encountered Ha Kyung and nervously attempted to flirt, despite his usual assertive demeanor. Later, Ha Kyung and Kim Sung-ryung received urgent news from Department Head Lee's wife. The chairman had filed a lawsuit against her, causing her great distress. Upon their return, the chairman of Changlong Xian arrived. Recognizing the deputy director as an acquaintance, he had him stopped. Aggressive security guards restrained the deputy director, causing Ha-Kian to fall, greatly upsetting Kim Sung-ryong. He stepped in and confronted the guards, figuring he was about to leave the wretched company anyway. The Longxi group, constantly creating obstacles, insisted on their own on-site due diligence to assess the company's worthiness for the large investment. They almost left due to Seo Yun's abrasive attitude. As Kim Sung-ryong argued with the rude security guards, he suddenly received an order and was pulled away. Upon seeing the blonde-haired Kim Sung-ryong, the Longxi representatives became excited and praised him. They had seen the news about Kim Sung-ryong's heroic act of saving someone and wanted him on the due diligence preparation team. Suddenly, Kim Sung-ryong claimed he couldn't do it, but they insisted on his participation. Seeing this, he feigned reluctance, passing the buck to someone else before slipping away. Inside, the Longxi director declared that the deal would be off if Kim Sung-ryong didn't participate. Immediately after, the chairman summoned Kim Sung-ryong. Kim Sung-ryong saw his opportunity and laid out his conditions. He would fully cooperate with the due diligence team if the chairman dropped the lawsuit against Chief Li's wife and granted him a small request regarding Director Seo Yun. In private, Kim Sung-ryong asked Seo Yun to destroy his ledgers so he could work for the company with peace of mind. Due to the large investment at stake, Seo Yun reluctantly agreed. Kim Sung-ryong further demanded that the matter be handled that very night, before things got worse. Meanwhile, in the business department, everyone was buzzing about Chief Kim's act of chivalry in helping to dismiss the lawsuit. Hong Ka-yoon, overhearing this, unknowingly became a fan of Kim Sung-ryong. At the same time, Ha-Kian also acknowledged him as a truly righteous person, although the term had become tiresome for Kim Sung-ryong, and he wished she wouldn't use it anymore. Later, taking advantage of the busy preparations, Ha-Kian requested to join the investigation. That night, Seo Yun brought half of the documents for Kim Sung-ryong to destroy. Feeling satisfied with the partial erasure of his incriminating evidence, Kim Sung-ryong's joy was short-lived as the ceiling suddenly collapsed, turning the small room into a chaotic mess. Around the same time, Nam Ho received news that his family was short of money. The next morning, as Kim Sung-ryong grumbled about the expensive rent, Nam Ho approached him with an offer. He had a spare room since his wife and daughter were abroad, and Kim Sung-ryong could move in for a monthly fee. Kim Sung-ryong tried to haggle down the price, but was called stingy by Nam Ho. Later, at the delivery room, Kim Sung-ryong recognized a familiar face leading the protesting group. He pressed Seo Yun for information about the protest, but was continuously ignored, as Seo Yun just wanted to deal with the noisy crowd as quickly as possible. As the team began checking documents, Kim Sung-ryong's computer froze. Fumbling under the desk for the power outlet, he accidentally shut down everyone's computers, infuriating Seo Yun, who kicked him out. Outside, Kim Sung-ryong approached the familiar man in the red shirt. It turned out to be an acquaintance from his previous company. They reminisced, and the man even gave Kim Sung-ryong his union president jacket. Meanwhile, Seo Yun received information about an inside collaborator working with the chairman's wife to overthrow him. That night, a group of men in black, resembling thugs, attacked the protesters. They grabbed Kim Sung-ryong and dragged him away, terrifying him. They took him to an abandoned building and pressured the union president to confess, even though Kim Sung-ryong vehemently denied any involvement. Without further ado, the ringleader presented 3 boxes overflowing with money, totaling 300 million won. They coerced him into taking 2 boxes and splitting the third with the union officials, in exchange for canceling the next day's protest. If he refused this lucrative offer, Kim Sung-ryong would receive a complimentary meridian massage implying a beating. After some deliberation, he returned home with the heavy boxes, the sight of the cash igniting a battle between his inner angel and devil. Ultimately, thinking of the exploited workers whose wages were being stolen, Kim Sung-ryong crumpled up the agreement. Seo Yun confronted the chairman's wife, accusing her of recklessness in sending thugs. Confident in her control over the protesters, she challenged Seo Yun. The next morning, Kim Sung-ryong arrived at work with a large bag. After contemplating, he decided to confide in a senior colleague, seeking advice on how to smoothly return the money. The colleague advised him to return the funds and alerted a contact in the accounting department. The money was quickly transferred to Ha Kyung, who deposited it into the company account. Meanwhile, the protest continued, with demonstrators loudly chanting slogans, a scene visible even to those at TR1 Bezel 1 EDDNG Long Tae An. Upon hearing this, the chairman ordered Seo Yun to deal with those stabbing him in the back. He summoned the company personnel, the union president, and the ringleader. The ringleader pointed out the existence of the money, the recipient, and the signed agreement, bearing Kim Sung Ryong's name. A furious Seo Yun frantically called Kim Sung Ryong, demanding his immediate presence. Everyone assumed he had absconded with the money. But then Kim Sung Ryong walked in like an angel. He taunted the ringleader, provoking him into a furious struggle. Once things calmed down, he recounted the previous day's events and revealed that the dirty money had been transferred to the accounting department's reserve account. Since it was company money used for unofficial expenses, returning it to the company account was perfectly justifiable. Infuriated, the union president vowed to pursue the matter. As Kim Sung Ryong emerged, he was greeted as a true hero, Ha Kyung looking at him with newfound respect. The chairman, learning of the incident, angrily rebuked Seo Yun for his inability to control his staff. Kim Sung Ryong was baffled by his 180-degree transformation. Once someone who avoided helping others to stay out of trouble, he now found happiness in doing good. That evening, Ha Kyung witnessed Seo Yun awkwardly practicing his baseball swing and offered him some pointers. She then suggested they have drinks together, surprising him. Ha Kyung, a seasoned drinker, got him thoroughly intoxicated and probed him about his ascent to the top position at TQ Group. Despite his inebriation, Seo Yun remained tight-lipped, instead inviting her to play baseball with him before passing out. The next morning, Seo Yun admired his new baseball glove, his good mood lasting until he realized that Ha Kyung was aligned with the chairman's wife. TR1 Bezel 1 EDDNG Long Tae An, unhappy about the protests at TQ Group, demanded a complete restructuring of the delivery company, wanting to invest in a stable enterprise. Later, Ha Kyung asked Kim Sung Ryong if he feared the repercussions of his actions. He replied that he only worried about the department head's wife and the chairman's wife, earning Ha Kyung's admiration. She expressed her desire for him to stay at the company, considering him a valuable team member. Seo Yun then summoned Kim Sung Ryong, comparing him to a baseball glove and questioning his persistent defiance. He gave Kim Sung Ryong one last chance to become a useful glove. Kim Sung Ryong declared his intention to be the batter, opposing him. Seo Yun let him go without punishment. This seemingly fortunate outcome was short-lived, as the police arrived, presenting Kim Sung Ryong with handcuffs and a ledger detailing his alleged crimes, leaving him stunned. Just as he resigned himself to his fate, 3 lawyers appeared to represent him. A junior secretary visits her senior colleagues but encounters a problem, leading Ha Kyung to take her home to rest. The next day, 3 lawyers successfully argue for Kim Sung Ryong's release. He discovers that the person who hired the lawyers is none other than Ha Kyung. She asks if he wants to go straight, and he obediently follows her back. Director Seo is furious that Kim Sung Ryong has escaped again, especially since a renowned lawyer was involved. Seo Yun then offers Kim Sung Ryong a chance to resign, but he chooses to stay with his cherished colleagues. The accounting department drowns their sorrows, believing their new manager will face severe consequences. The intern cries inconsolably, his inspiration seemingly doomed. The next day, Kim Sung Ryong faces ostracization and gossip, and the office atmosphere is gloomy. The accounting department is treated as accomplices and their hard drives are confiscated. The witch, Na Hee-young, reprimands Kim Sung Ryong for damaging the company's reputation and tries to fire him. He refuses, and she sends him to the waiting room, a desolate area where employees contemplate their mistakes. It's a humiliating place where no one lasts more than 2 days, often choosing to resign rather than endure the shame. If they're stubborn, the company fabricates reasons to force them out. Meanwhile, Secretary Gang Suk finds a job at the TQ company's coffee shop. The chairman's son, learning of Kim Sung Ryong's predicament, comes to the accounting department to gloat but quickly cowers when he sees him. Instead of reacting rashly, Kim Sung Ryong invites him to dinner, using the opportunity to teach him about responsible spending. That evening, Kim Sung Ryong and Ha Kyung have drinks with their senior colleague. Kim Sung-ryang mentions his housing search, and the sympathetic colleague offers him a discounted apartment, complete with free TV, refrigerator, and ramen. However, the apartment turns out to be a cramped attic room with a non-functional window. The colleague jokes that a little discomfort builds character. The attic access is a one-way ladder, and the colleague advises using a water bottle to relieve himself if trapped. The next morning, the colleague cooks a delicious meal for Kim Sung-ryang. Later, Seo-yeon learns that Ha Kyung hired the lawyers who freed Kim Sung-ryang. Na Hee-young attempts to reclaim Kim Sung-ryang's employee bonus, but he resists. In turn, Hong Ka-yoon supports him, and Na Hee-young backs down. Kim Sung-ryang and Hong Ka-yoon share a heartfelt conversation on the stairs where she praises him as the best manager she's known. Returning to his desk, Kim Sung-ryang discovers a suicide note and a missing colleague. He calls Ha Kyung and their senior colleague to help search. They find the man on the rooftop, contemplating suicide. Feeling like a failure to his family and company, Kim Sung-ryang talks him down, reminding him of his daughter and the important moments they should share. Moved, the man abandons his suicidal thoughts, decides to resign, and focus on his family. When the witch saw the empty hallway chairs, assuming the male lead had given up, she ordered the furniture removed. Suddenly, Kim Sung-ryang arrived with a massage chair and a pile of relaxation gear, along with his department. Everyone immediately rushed to watch him relax, having brought all his belongings from home to the office, not forgetting his game console. This infuriated the witch because he hadn't broken any rules. Meanwhile, the board of directors was discussing the increasingly intense protests following rumors of layoffs. Seo-yeon said he would resolve everything after a couple of downpours. At that moment, the business operations department learned that Kai-ok's father was on the layoff list. Everyone rushed to offer their condolences and support to their colleague. Ha Kyung also went to the department head, expressing her concern that the company wasn't trying to recover, but was instead laying off employees. The male lead declared he would quit after getting his revenge because, as in the movies, that's how it always goes. It seemed no one dared to oppose their superiors, so Kim Sung-ryang would show them the power of the underdog when they rise up. He then went to the accounting department, rigged up an electrical connection for a relaxing foot soak, and when the witch threatened him, he used the media to defend himself. Since Chief Kim was the first to attack indiscriminately, she had to report it to her superiors. That afternoon, while everyone was working, they heard Vina House music blasting from downstairs. He stubbornly declared it his personal space, leaving everyone speechless. Thus, the witch continuously received reports related to Chief Kim. That evening, Ha Kyung told the chairman's wife about Chief Kim's audacious behavior. This is how she learned about the existence of the humiliating waiting room. She couldn't believe how chaotic the company had become in her short absence. The next day, the chairman learned that creditors were starting to demand a large sum of money due to false rumors. He remained calm, stating they had their Grim Reaper. Immediately afterward, he met with Seo-yeon, urging him to quickly put out the fire. That evening, Seo-yeon met with two of his friends, also creditors from China, to discuss the situation. Upon seeing the Grim Reaper, they became very tense. He asked if they intended to pull the plug on their company, then reminded them of their past transgressions involving abuse of power to evade taxes. Seo-yeon revealed he had kept evidence, so they wisely extended the loan for another 3 years. That night, the male lead reflected that he had no regrets and organized his belongings. If living meant being trash, then being scolded was expected. If living honestly, it was just being called a clean pile of trash. The next morning, he collaborated with Hong Ka-yoon to stir up trouble in the accounting department, falsely accusing them of stealing confidential information from the business operations department. Meanwhile, Kai-ok received news that the chairman and the union leader had been arrested for obstructing business and numerous other charges. Due to excessive disruption, the witch received numerous complaint letters. Thus, the male lead succeeded in abolishing the TQ living hell and returned to his office, but the atmosphere felt strange. When Ha Kyung explained, he learned that Kai-ok's father had been injured during the protest. He recounted how they used provocative language and hurled insults, so he couldn't help but retaliate. He ended up with a broken leg and hospitalized, causing trouble for his son. That evening, the chairman's wife requested to discuss company matters with her husband, as he considered TQ delivery only a last resort for investment. Her father wanted to create a positive image of labor, so he was always proud of TQ Delivery. Simultaneously, Ha Kyung couldn't hold back and revealed that the person backing Kim Sung Ryung was actually the chairman's wife. She then shared some shocking secrets because he was a trustworthy department head. She explained her and the chairman's wife's plan, hoping he would cooperate. Kim Sung Ryung firmly refused, not wanting to get involved with this ghost company again. Ha Kyung revealed that Seo Yun was behind the union arrests, but he ignored it and returned home, determined to pack his things and leave. The next day, he announced his resignation at the company, much to everyone's regret. Suddenly, the chairman's wife's people arrived to invite the young couple and their senior, Nam Ho, to a meeting. They also specifically delivered a letter to the male lead. However, the chairman's wife only saw Ha Kyung and Nam Ho. Upon learning that the most important person hadn't arrived and had resigned due to family matters, she texted him, urging him to read her letter. In the meeting, the chairman's wife announced the launch of a TQ Delivery revival project and the formation of a special response team with Chu Nam Ho and Ha Kyung as leaders. Kim Sung Ryung suddenly entered, declaring himself the one to implement the revival project. The meeting ended in a chaotic mess. Senior colleagues were scratching their heads, baffled at how their department head could be so bold as to confront the iron triangle of embezzlers. This move offered no extra pay or improved treatment, and one wrong step could mean career suicide. He declared resolutely that accepting this task to save the company was the right decision. Ha Kyung, curious about his plan, asked for details, but he cryptically responded that it was a secret. Seeing them joke around amidst this crisis, the senior colleague could only leave in exasperation. Meanwhile, the chairman's wife was determined to proceed with her project despite opposition. Seo Yun reminded her to follow protocol. Immediately afterward, he went searching through company regulations, looking for loopholes. At the same time, Ha Kyung pressed Kim Sung Ryung for the real reason he changed his mind and decided to save the company. Could it be the chairman's wife's letter? She imagined he had returned out of concern for her safety, but in reality, Kim Sung Ryung had received a large down payment from the chairman's wife, with the promise of double that amount upon the project's success. The chairman's wife, having grasped the crux of the matter, successfully retained his talent. Naturally, Kim Sung Ryung kept his motivation secret, telling Ha Kyung he was worried about her. Back at the office, everyone celebrated Kim's return. Chu Nam Ho, irritated, urged everyone to be realistic. Yi Jun also refused to work overtime. Only these two opposed. Everyone else agreed to help, so the business operations department would participate in the project. Min Jeong was anxious, worried that the business operations team would uncover the bomb that could implicate the chairman and the Iron Triangle. Seo Yun then summoned the Iron Triangle, reminding them that the regulations stated that business operations also fell under the finance department's purview, meaning he oversaw and monitored all departments. He gave them a 2-week deadline for the revitalization project, threatening to disband business operations if it failed. Outside, the senior colleague warned Ha Kyung to keep this quiet to avoid widespread panic. Back in their office, the senior colleague asked Kim Sung Ryung about his specific plan, assuming he must have one to have volunteered. However, Kim laughed, admitting he had no plan, having accepted the task solely on orders. To understand the key issue, they needed to see someone who understood TQ Deliveries best. They went to the police station, but their request to meet with someone was denied. Thanks to the chairman's wife's lawyers, they gained access. The delivery worker revealed they were restricted to certain vendors dictated by the company, and these vendors charged double the market price. This was the Iron Triangle's method of embezzling without leaving a trace. Returning to the company, Ha Kyung ran into Seo Yun and confronted him about the excessive punishment of disbanding their department. He shamelessly accused her of getting him drunk to extract information. Ha Kyung admitted to feeling guilty about her manipulative tactics, but argued that after witnessing his actions, she felt justified. She questioned why he would target hardworking employees in business operations. His actions, she asserted, benefited no one. Seo Yun denied this, claiming to care only for his own immediate gains. Their conversation ended there. The senior colleague confided in Kim Sung Ryung about needing to work to put his daughter through college, urging him not to act recklessly. Kim Sung Ryung confidently declared he'd ensure his daughter not only attended college but also got married. The senior colleague was astonished by his bold assurance. He then asked why Kim had been allowed to move in with him. Chu Nam-ho admitted that while Kim was a liar and a troublemaker, at least he wasn't a backstabber. He expressed sincere gratitude for Kim's return and then shyly climbed onto the sofa to sleep. The next day, as everyone was energized, an order came down for a comprehensive audit of all departmental expenses. The senior colleague knew the corrupt officials were deliberately sabotaging their project. Seo Yun, examining the money trail, summoned the accounting manager. TQ Delivery's funds were being transferred to an unknown bank. Tracing the IP address, he discovered it was located on the 12th floor, the accounting department. The manager feigned ignorance despite threats. After work, the manager was seen sneaking off to destroy documents, but Hong Ka-yoon witnessed it. Seo Yun's men subsequently interrogated him. Seo Yun then threatened Yo Min-young into obedience, lest her involvement in the embezzlement scheme be exposed. Not satisfied, he went down to business operations and announced the project's failure and the department's imminent dissolution, infuriating Kim Sung-ryong. For the peace of the entire department, Senior Manager Kim Sung-ryong sat obediently while I stepped forward and meekly apologized to him. Immediately afterward, everyone's spirits plummeted, knowing they had to gamble their careers on this ambiguous project. Nevertheless, the work had to be done, so the two young colleagues disguised themselves as auditors from the headquarters and went to the stores to investigate. They were joined by Sung-ryong's junior colleague, a vehicle maintenance expert specializing in transportation. He and his junior questioned the stores about significantly overcharging compared to external vendors. Initially, the store managers denied everything, but the truth quickly came out. Ha Kyung also put on an act, playing the bad cop and investigating the remaining parties. Meanwhile, the chairman invited Seo Yun to a private dinner, promising him control of the Chinese retail company if the TR letter 1BO letter 1EDDNG Long Tae and project succeeded. He assured Seo Yun that he would be promoted to the board of directors to avoid any criticism. Back with our duo, they completed the first step, pretending the recipient of the kickbacks hadn't received anything, infuriating the person distributing the funds. Next, they moved on to step 2, making it seem as if the recipient was double-crossing the distributor, slowly revealing the secret. At the office, Yi Jun pulled his team aside, berating Kim Sung-ryong for putting everyone in danger. Yi Jun told everyone to just stay put and let him take the heat. His friend walked in, reproaching Chu Nam-ho for not stopping Sung-ryong's crazy actions. The senior manager explained that he could have called it off and humiliated Sung-ryong, but he didn't because he knew it was the right thing to do. He then asked the intern, Sang-ti, what he stood to lose and gain. Sang-ti replied that failure meant losing his insurance, salary, and the job he loved, but success would bring confidence, self-respect, and optimism, his face beaming with hope. The senior manager reminisced about his own sharper days before marriage, a house, and kids had aged him. He felt revitalized since meeting Chief Kim, and his words touched everyone's hearts, moving the team to tears. Finally, they united in support of each other. The following day, Seo Yun demanded a report from Kim Sung-ryong, but it was merely a piece of paper with the words Project Focus written on it, infuriating him. Sung-ryong countered, demanding that if the project succeeded, the business department would be moved to the 17th floor and Seo Yun would apologize to everyone. Back in their office, the team discussed how to find evidence from Kai-ok's father and the anonymous informant within the Chinese delivery service. Calculating the total discount amount would complete the project. Simultaneously, Hong Ga-yoon finished piecing together shredded documents, recognizing a piece related to a transaction from an unknown bank account. She rushed to inform Kim Sung-ryong. Sung-ryong met with Kai-ok's father, persuading him to testify on behalf of the wrongfully dismissed employees. He readily agreed, as this was what they had been fighting for all along. Next, Sung-ryong subtly needled the head of the Chinese delivery service, wishing him bon appetit, encouraging him to exercise, and then washing his car right in front of him. Finally, the man couldn't take it anymore and agreed to cooperate. Sung-ryong probed him about the kickback scheme, but he was tight-lipped. Only when Sung-ryong suggested a way to anonymously sabotage his superiors and make a clean getaway did he become interested. They agreed to exchange secrets, with the delivery chief receiving Sung-ryong's escape artist tips. Sung-ryong returned with the good news, delighting the team. The next day, Kim Sung-ryung presented before everyone, revealing internal corruption as the reason for the company's losses. Kai-ok's father stood up to speak about the unjustly fired employees but suddenly backtracked, supporting the decision. The delivery chief also claimed Sung-ryung had coerced him, turning on him completely, enraging Sung-ryung. It turned out Seo-yun's people had been monitoring Sung-ryung's every move, and Seo-yun had threatened Kai-ok's son's career. The delivery chief had also been strong-armed. The chairman's wife's plan to change the company had failed, and the team's efforts were wasted. Seo-yun arrived, ordering the business department to wrap things up and prepare to leave. From that moment, Chief Kim fell into a deep crisis. While Kim Sung-ryung was reflecting on himself, everyone was kicked out of the business operations department. Security cleared out all their belongings and reassigned the employees to different positions. Kai-ok was transferred to the best department, while Kim Sung-ryung's future remained uncertain. Returning to his now empty office, overwhelmed by self-reproach, he punched the wall, leaving a red stain on a piece of paper. He then went to Director Seo-yun's office and pleaded with him to rescind the order to dismantle the department. Seo-yun remained stubborn, and even Kim Sung-ryung's desperate plea on his knees couldn't change his mind. That evening, Kim Sung-ryung was drinking alone when Hong Ka-yoon appeared and offered him encouragement. She told him her brother was a police officer, and that he should call him if he ever needed help. When Kim Sung-ryung got home, Chu Nam-ho quickly bandaged his wound and cooked him a comforting meal, reminding him of his mother's cooking. He blamed himself for single-handedly destroying the business operations department and dragging everyone down with him. Despite this, no one blamed him, which only made him feel worse. The next day, everyone continued with their new assignments. Sang-tae had to endure the witch every day. Kim Sung-ryung was assigned to a department managed by the director's son, who found his meek demeanor irritating. No matter how much the director's son provoked him, Kim Sung-ryung simply cleaned up the messes. He then learned from Ha Kyung that Kai-ok had submitted his resignation and disappeared without a trace. At that moment, Kai-ok was returning to inform his father of his resignation, only to be met with a furious outburst. He couldn't bring himself to work with the guilt he felt. As they argued, Kim Sung-ryung walked in and lectured Kai-ok about respecting his father. He also inquired about what had happened to cause such a drastic change in his father. He demanded that Kai-ok return to work immediately as his resignation hadn't been processed yet. Shortly after, the entire business operations department gathered to hear Kim Sung-ryung's apology. He then informed Seo-yun that he would start over and do things the right way. Seo-yun challenged him to do his best. The following day, Kim Sung-ryung went to work with renewed confidence. He directly confronted and intimidated the chairman's son, then requested a 2-day leave to work off-site. Meanwhile, Hwang-suk, while delivering coffee, overheard some men bad-mouthing her boss. She threw hot water on the man's crotch. Outside, she was stunned by the sight of the scholarly young man before her Sang-tae. He recognized her as the woman Kim Sung-ryung had mentioned. Hwang-suk gave him a lollipop as a greeting, and the two were instantly smitten. Elsewhere, Kim Sung-ryung met with Hong Ka-yoon and asked for her help in investigating a few acquaintances. Later, accompanied by her and a junior colleague, they staked out an adulterous affair. They obtained evidence and threatened the man into providing documents related to TQ Express. Using forceful methods, they compelled the department head to hand over the accounting books. They discovered the familiar pattern of bank embezzlement, coinciding with the chairman of Jang Yong-tae's visit that same day. Just as the company was on the verge of securing a significant investment from Jang Yong-tae, and Kim Sung-ryung walked in, effectively derailing the partnership. It turned out Kim Sung-ryung had reported to the chairman, with supporting documents, about the TQ delivery manager laundering money into a borrowed account, likely belonging to someone close to the chairman. He also presented a complete file proving internal corruption, forcing the chairman to listen and reinstate the business operations department. The chairman's wife praised Sung-ryung and offered him the remaining 200 million won reward, but he insisted it be given to the reinstated TQ delivery employees. He then anonymously distributed the rest, giving each member of his team and Hong Ka-yoon 10 million won. Everyone was shocked to find such a large sum in their accounts. Watching everyone celebrate, Sung-ryung couldn't resist telling Ha Kyung about his ownership of the large sum. Meanwhile, Seo Yun was gleefully reviewing TQ Retail documents when he learned they hadn't paid their retail stores in 3 consecutive years. Despite high sales figures, there was potential for significant losses, making the company a financial mess. Upon learning that Seo Yun owned TQ Retail, Sung Ryan realized this was his opponent. He became determined to ruin Seo Yun's career to prevent further suffering. He approached Hong Ka-yoon to investigate Seo Yun, but she was terrified of him. Sung Ryan used emotional tactics, reminding her of the 3,000 oppressed TQ delivery employees and Seo Yun's empty promises, convincing her to help. Chairman Myung-sun was sent overseas as punishment for his disruptive behavior. Frightened, he begged his mother to let him stay and atone for his mistakes. He confessed his desire to learn to be a better person, but lacked guidance despite his repeated wrongdoings. Seeing his resolve, his mother agreed to his request for a second chance. With many plotting against her, she hoped her son could protect her. She proposed to her husband that their son return to the company as a regular employee. He agreed on the condition that if their son caused any further trouble, both mother and son would go to the US. The next day, Kim Sung Ryang introduced the Business Operations Department's new member, surprising everyone. During lunch, the team encountered the obnoxious accounting department employees, leading to a heated argument and a scuffle. Seo Yun scheduled a meeting with the TQ retail store managers. That evening, he went drinking alone and was ambushed by a masked assailant upon returning. Ha Kyung, witnessing the attack, intervened with a well-aimed rock, unintentionally knocking Seo Yun unconscious. When he woke up, Ha Kyung curiously asked why he'd make enemies and accept being attacked as a matter of course. He described it as his own world, where trying to be one step ahead turned into 10, and once started, he couldn't stop. Being isolated was the natural consequence of going too far. He told her to simply assume he'd taken a path he couldn't turn back from if she ever saw him doing something wrong. The next day, the once plain secretary transformed into the lovely Oh Gwang-suk. Learning about Seo Yun's meeting with the store managers, Sung Ryan crashed it, sending everyone away and infuriating Seo Yun. He declared his intention to ruin Seo Yun's career by any means necessary. The following day, Seo Yun received lawsuits from the store managers. He immediately went to the chairman and asked if he intended to dump this mess on him. The most pressing issue was the unpaid wages, as the large number of employees meant that if word got out, the company would be ruined. Seo Yun declared he would take care of everything on the condition that he be made CEO of TQ Retail. The chairman agreed instantly. When the protagonist complained to Hong Ka-yoon about the difficulty of taking down Seo Yun, she suggested bugging him. Kim Sung Ryung was surprised that the seemingly innocent girl could come up with such a plan. Soon after, Hong Ka-yoon delivered the special gift to director Seo, who remained completely oblivious. The two overheard Seo Yun's impending transfer to manage the retail company. The protagonist vowed to sabotage his plans. Later, he discussed the matter with his colleagues. Knowing Kim Sung Ryung was on the right side, they encouraged him and wished him success in his revenge. Ha Kyung confided in him about Seo Yun's recent ambush. He then secretly followed Seo Yun, intending to scare him, but unexpectedly, it was Kim Sung Ryung who ended up injured. He was electrocuted, temporarily paralyzed, and his water gun rendered useless by the prank. The cleaning lady, noticing the key, recalled Chief Lee's instructions. He had mysteriously told her to give this important item to anyone who dared to stand up against the company. While the chairman's wife berated him for 3 years of unpaid wages, his two right-hand men were at each other's throats. Jo Min-young, having just paid the thugs who ambushed Seo Yun's rival, was confronted by Seo Yun himself. He beat up his accomplice as a warning to Jo Min-young to obey. The next morning, Director Seo Yun demanded the store owners drop their lawsuits, but they firmly refused. He then ordered his men to investigate the store managers' backgrounds. Meanwhile, the young couple discovered that the number of employees with unpaid wages due to alleged losses was significant. In reality, the stores were profitable, but the cosmetic brands were manipulating the figures to show losses. The protagonist then invited Myung-suk for drinks to extract information from him. The following morning, he asked the cleaning lady to retrieve information from Seo Yun's office. She successfully obtained some crucial documents. He then managed to rally some store managers to his side. However, Seo Yun immediately called an urgent meeting with them, declaring that those present would become homeless if they didn't comply. He offered to pay 60% of the back wages to part-time employees in exchange for the store managers and full-time employees accepting only half of their due pay. By the time the protagonist arrived to intervene, they had already signed the agreement. They also received news of Seo Yun's imminent appointment as president of the convenience store company. Kim Sung-ryung then met with Oh Gwang-suk to plan a scheme for the following day, coinciding with Seo Yun's inauguration ceremony. The next day, upon arriving at the company, Seo Yun was jostled and accidentally got paint on his hand. The cleaning lady then imprinted a handprint on a nearby woman, who promptly accused Seo Yun of being a pervert, holding him back in a lengthy argument. Seo Yun was subsequently arrested by the police. The board of directors had assembled at the company, but the key figure was stuck at the police station. He was bailed out by someone from the prosecutor's office, but was then delayed by the driver. Finally, Seo Yun rushed to the meeting room only to find Kim Sung-ryung waiting for him. So, he got chewed out by the chairman for going out and losing track of time, unable to face the board afterward. Seo Yun also lost their trust and was given 1 month to rectify the situation and present at another meeting. The business department, upon hearing this, criticized him for digging his own grave. Yi-jun, however, supported this outcome, believing someone like Seo Yun, who had only ever worked at a convenience store for 5 years, shouldn't be a director. He visited a convenience store and overheard a frustrated college student who had been cheated out of her wages without even an apology. When our protagonist identified himself as a TQ employee wanting to help people like her, the student opened up. He asked her to gather others who had been similarly cheated, hoping to scare the perpetrators. Meanwhile, Kim Sung-ryung discovered TQ's vulnerability, their cosmetics company, which had poured all its capital into a Taiwanese company. The bank account receiving these questionable funds was the same one from earlier. He confronted Jo Min-young, learning that the chairman was also involved. The next day, the protagonist discussed this with his colleagues, searching for solutions. Myung-suk suggested a lawsuit to pressure the company. This proved timely, as Seo Yun was already worried about part-time employees reporting TQ to the labor board. He bribed someone he knew there. Our protagonist's team was equally active. Lee Min-jae, the college student, had gathered 3,000 people. He asked the chairman's wife for her best lawyer to assist them. Seo Yun, upon hearing this, attempted to bribe Min-jae, who flatly refused. Seeing this fail, he directly threatened her. Min-jae, hardened by her experiences, explained how TQ's failure to pay wages forced her to take on multiple jobs just to pay rent, during which time she was harassed by older men. Now, she just wanted justice. Concurrently, the prosecutor, investigating a large sum deposited into Hong Ka-yoon's account, suspected Kim Sung-ryung had bribed her. He called and met her, demanding she reveal everything. Hong Ka-yoon stated she simply wanted to be on the side of righteousness, a stance approved by her superiors. The next day, news broke about thousands of convenience store part-timers filing a lawsuit. The furious chairman, shocked these kids, demanded an apology, resolved to crush them. Min-jae was fired. The young duo began planning their counterattack. Myung-suk prepared Sang-ti for his first date, much to Oh Gwang-suk's shock, as she loved his usual bookish appearance. The next day, Myung-suk delivered confidential documents from TQ's cosmetics company, delighting the protagonist. The whole office celebrated his first real contribution. The cleaning lady then provided crucial documents for taking down Seo Yun. He called the devil to arrange a negotiation. They had assembled passionate young part-timers, bravely standing their ground. The protagonist asked Myung-suk's permission to use the documents against his father, feeling guilty about driving a wedge between them. Myung-suk hesitated but agreed. It was shameful for his father to exploit these workers. During the calm negotiation, they demanded back pay, but Seo Yun refused. Kim Sung-ryung then revealed his collected evidence, Seo Yun's illegally obtained background checks on store managers, the IP addresses of those posting malicious comments online, all tracing back to the 15th floor finance department, and finally, proof that TQ convenience stores were covering losses for TQ Cosmetics, the most serious offense, as the company had fabricated reasons to withhold wages. Min-jae demanded back pay and a public apology from the chairman. If not, the media would feature TQ prominently the next day. Seo Yun was berated by the chairman for failing to clean up his mess. Under public pressure, the chairman apologized on television. Everyone celebrated, while Myung-suk appeared saddened by his father's involvement. Min-jae regained faith in life. Unbeknownst to them, the chairman was plotting Kim Sung-ryong's demise. That night, he was attacked, knocked unconscious, and dragged to a secluded location. Just when Kim Sung-ryong thought he was done for, someone unexpectedly came to his rescue. Seo-yeon. After escaping the dangerous situation, Seo-yeon pulled over and scolded him for his reckless behavior. He reminded Kim Sung-ryong that he had told him to stay put and cooperate, and that he should be grateful to be alive. He explained that in this world, honest people like him could be eliminated without a trace, urging him to leave immediately and get as far away as possible. Kim Sung-ryong questioned whether exposing their despicable acts was wrong. Seeing Kim Sung-ryong's stubbornness, Seo-yeon drove off, leaving him stranded on a deserted road. Kim Sung-ryong walked home in the cold night air, vowing to deal with the person behind the attack. Seo-yeon then realized that Chief Lee was also a victim of the chairman for disobeying him. The next day, Kim Sung-ryong dressed impeccably and arrived at the office with 2 tall, imposing bodyguards, showing off the wound on his neck to everyone. He sarcastically thanked the chairman for his heartfelt apology. He then thanked Seo-yeon for saving him, teasing him slightly. When Jo Min-young arrived to confess her role in the previous day's events, Seo-yeon broke out in a cold sweat. After confirming she didn't know who rescued Kim Sung-ryong, he resumed his usual condescending demeanor. Back in his office, Kim Sung-ryong bragged to his colleagues about his martial arts skills, claiming that's how he escaped his attackers. The entire office was awestruck by Chief Kim's apparent prowess. Despite the boasting, he pulled Ha Kyung aside and revealed that Seo-yeon was his savior. He then wrote letters to each person in the office, instructing them to open them only after he left. He then stormed into the chairman's office and presented his certificate of life, stating that Kim Sung-ryong is always cheerful, even when stepping in manure, and that he would never commit suicide. He added that if he were to die under suspicious circumstances or in an unexpected accident, he requested a thorough investigation, hinting that the clue would be found in the chairman's dealings with the TQ Group. He declared he would live a long and healthy life and die of old age before confidently leaving. Kim Sung-ryong realized that the upcoming audit would make or break careers. Ha Kyung explained that after the audit, the accounting department would dispose of all their department's documents, a process she called whitewashing. They had a separate audit team led by Park Seung-bi, hiding somewhere, handling this. Suddenly, Ha Kyung invited Seo-yeon to dinner, flustering him. It turned out she wanted to apologize for the bump on his head from the previous encounter. Seo-yeon ordered a feast, indulging his appetite. As they parted, Ha Kyung revealed she knew Seo-yeon was the one who had bravely rescued Kim Sung-ryong. Meanwhile, a seemingly inept prosecutor asked Kim Sung-ryong for help with the audit. Noticing someone watching them and a recording device underneath the table, he flatly refused. Kim Sung-ryong wondered how someone so slow could be a prosecutor, only to learn he was working for Jo Min-young. When Hong Ka-yoon arrived at the office late, she found everyone shredding documents. The female manager abruptly sent her home. That night, Hong Ka-yoon secretly retrieved some of the discarded documents, a scene witnessed by the female manager. The next morning, the headquarters audit team arrived. Seo-yeon confronted the chairman about the secret bank account, warning him that even the prosecutor wouldn't be able to protect him if he continued his deception. The cleaning lady also gave Kim Sung-ryong Chief Lee's key. Overwhelmed, Kim Sung-ryong realized he was becoming the central figure in everything. He asked his colleagues about the key, but they knew nothing. It didn't belong to any of the cabinets in their office. Ha Kyung took on the task of finding the corresponding cabinet, while Kim Sung-ryong went to confront the audit team. Ha Kyung met with Chief Lee's wife and learned about his last known location before the accident. Meanwhile, the female manager gave Hong Ka-yoon a stack of documents related to current assets, instructing her to handle them carefully. Hong Ka-yoon then gave these documents to Kim Sung-ryong as crucial evidence against the chairman. At the same time, Seo-yeon discovered a listening device in the gift Hong Ka-yoon had given him. That night, Madam Chairman allowed Kim Sung-ryong to become the head of the internal audit department to easily access audit documents. He also contacted the prosecutor to discuss the situation and learned that the accounting department and the audit team were meeting secretly. So, he lurked nearby to eavesdrop and then appeared suddenly, startling them. Standing before them was the chief spy authorized to participate in all meetings and oversee the company's documents. Disheartened, the group left in his presence. Back home, his senior was surprised that Kim Sung-ryang had such an all-access pass, allowing him to participate in all audit activities and even punish administrative staff. Suddenly, Ha Kyung arrived with a chairman-embossed book taken from Chief Lee's secret cabinet. Inside, a single underlined passage highlighted the basics of office circulation. They suspected Chief Lee's emphasis on this book held a clue, but not being Sherlock Holmes, they couldn't decipher it yet. The next day, the chairman, learning of Kim Sung-ryang's new powerful position, sought to discredit him. He planned to exploit Kim Sung-ryang's newfound authority, turning him into a villain everyone would despise. Jo Min-young confidently accepted this task. Seo-yeon, however, warned that Kim Sung-ryang wasn't easily manipulated. At that moment, Kim Sung-ryang was arrogantly demanding confidential accounting documents for his investigation team. He then sat with the auditors reviewing documents that had all been sanitized. Knowing that Kim Sung-ryang would trace the fake documents to their source, Seo-yeon anticipated he would investigate the factory, warehouses, real estate, and so on. Immediately afterward, Kim Sung-ryang and Ma Young-suk arrived at a warehouse called TQPLP. While Kim Sung-ryang distracted the warehouse manager with talk of upcoming awards, Ma Young-suk slipped inside to search. He discovered a large amount of hidden inventory and began taking pictures, but was caught by an employee. They accused the well-dressed Ma Young-suk of theft. As they argued, Kim Sung-ryang arrived to rescue his junior. Back at the company, Seo-yeon discovered the chairman owned 80% of Taepan's bank and had recently opened accounts in Switzerland. Upon learning that Kim Sung-ryang was investigating the warehouse inventory, he changed his plans. Meanwhile, Jo Min-young confessed to the chairman that Seo-yeon had leverage over her and she was forced to obey him. She warned the chairman that Seo-yeon knew too much confidential information and, given his tendency to exploit weaknesses, the chairman should be cautious. The following day, the investigation team inspected the properties owned by TQ, but they were all fake. Seo-yeon, upon hearing this, asked the chairman to use some of the slush fund from Taepan's bank to cover the losses from the fake properties. The chairman refused to sacrifice any of his personal wealth and happily left Seo-yeon to deal with the mess. That night, an accounting department employee snuck into the investigation team's office, tampered with Kim Sung-ryang's computer, and left a wad of dirty money in his desk drawer. The deputy manager then urged another employee to accuse Kim Sung-ryang of intimidation and coercion. Seo-yeon signaled the instigator to begin their scheme. As Kim Sung-ryang continued his usual antics with the audit team, someone called the instigator's name. They gathered to discuss short-term stocks, deliberately letting Kim Sung-ryang overhear. He called Hong Ka-yoon and asked her to retrieve all the stock documents. The female manager gave her the documents and instructed her to handle them carefully. Suddenly, security guards barged in, arresting both of them for leaking confidential information and placing them under disciplinary action. Hong Ka-yoon wept, and Kim Sung-ryang appeared trapped. The accounting employee who tampered with the computer the night before presented evidence of Kim Sung-ryang's alleged embezzlement, claiming, "All secrets start from within the office." Ha Kyung, pondering Chief Lee's underlined passage and that statement, searched the office for the matching chairman embossed book. They finally found a memory card inside. Simultaneously, Kim Sung-ryang ended his charade and revealed a video he'd secretly recorded of the accounting employee's actions the previous night. The confidential documents had been swapped with employee meal vouchers, as he and Hong Ka-yoon had anticipated their scheme. They had deliberately collaborated to expose the fraudsters. Immediately after, Ha Kyung summoned Kim Sung-ryang to the final audit meeting of the year. They presented the memory card left by Chief Lee, proving accounting fraud had occurred during the previous year's audit. Meanwhile, prosecutor Han Dong-dun obtained evidence of fraud from Ha Kyung, including original documents and photos of forged invoices. He declared those involved would be held responsible. Hearing this, Seo-yeon dejectedly left the room, leaving the trembling, terrified auditor behind. The next day, Han Dong-dun led a team of prosecutors to raid TQ Group's accounting department. Hong Ka-yoon bid farewell to everyone to return to her work as a prosecutor. Kim Sung-ryang, along with the witch, went to confront Jo Min-young and her accomplices. Instead of submitting a formal complaint to the board, they simply handed them 20 self-criticism forms to submit to the ethics department. Jo Min-young nearly fainted from rage. News of the accounting fraud at TQ Group broke, causing public uproar. Seeing the critical situation, the chairman arranged a meeting with an influential figure to ask for help, saying he was willing to sacrifice everything. The figure agreed. The next day, Myung-suk overheard his father talking about a sacrificial lamb. Alarmed by the dangerous implications, he immediately told Kim Sung-ryong, who feared he was about to be axed. In reality, the influential figure was thoroughly investigating Seo-yun, searching for his weaknesses. Kim Sung-ryong asked his protege to discreetly gather information throughout the company to identify this powerful individual. Simultaneously, the chairman handed over all authority and access to the slush fund to Seo-yun. Han Dong-dun was forced to hand over the entire investigation file to someone else, despite his protests. It was an order from higher up. This individual then orchestrated a scenario with Seo-yun's subordinates, framing him for establishing an overseas slush fund. Leveraging his former prosecutor status, he threatened and coerced them, investigating their backgrounds for leverage, and forcing them to fabricate evidence of Seo-yun's embezzlement. Seo-yun, acting on the chairman's behalf, held an internal meeting, but no one listened to him. Learning that Seo-yun had become the scapegoat, Kim Sung-ryong rushed to warn him, but Seo-yun ignored him. However, upon seeing the background of the influential figure, Seo-yun called an ally. His mentor advised him that this individual was a meticulous planner and suggested he avoid this fight. Seo-yun disregarded the advice, offering only a piece of candy in response. Shortly after, he received news of his impending arrest. Before he could react, the influential figure presented him with an arrest warrant. Thugs ambushed and took Seo-yun away. Seeing this, Kim Sung-ryong and his mentor tracked Seo-yun's location to an abandoned building, preparing for the upcoming confrontation. Seo-yun was being held there overnight, as his arrest warrant wouldn't take effect until the next day. If he didn't confess by then, his charges would be compounded, and he would face harsher penalties. Kim Sung-ryong and his mentor, following the tracking device, reached the abandoned building, ready for the fight that lay ahead. With a few well-placed moves, they successfully rescued Seo-yun. To avoid falling into the chairman's trap for Seo-yun, Kim Sung-ryong orchestrated a theatrical performance. He addressed reporters, proclaiming that the rumors of Seo-yun's escape were false. Seo-yun had been kidnapped but rescued by the chivalrous Kim Sung-ryong after a brawl. This news, broadcast on television, caused a public frenzy, successfully buying Seo-yun 2 more days of freedom. They worried the press might suspect foul play by the Central District Prosecutor's office. Meanwhile, Seo-yun racked his brains for a way to save himself. Everyone felt sorry for Seo-yun, betrayed so deeply. The chairman had Jo Min-young announce an emergency restructuring of TQ Group. She declared it the biggest crisis and loss in the company's history. The chairman and the board implemented 3 emergency measures, laying off 287 employees, restricting personal phone use during work hours, and limiting severance pay and benefits for those laid off, including veteran Chu Nam-ho. The higher-ups rejected Chief Lee's documents due to questionable origins. The chairman's wife confronted him, but he dismissed it as a matter of competition and survival, then threatened her into silence, infuriating her. Myung-suk felt helpless, unable to assist his mother. Meanwhile, a well-fed Seo-yun devised a plan. He signaled Hong Ka-yoon as his ally, then feigned a bathroom emergency to discuss the plan with her, asking her to relay a message to Kim Sung-ryong. Due to tight security, Kim Sung-ryong disguised himself as a minister visiting inmates for prayer. After some pleading, he managed to meet with Seo-yun, and they hatched a plan. Kim Sung-ryong's ultimate rescue involved convincing both Prosecutor Han and the CEO. Gwang-suk spread distracting rumors among the staff. Ha Kyung used a voice-changing device to threaten Lee Kang-sik, the head of Taepan's bank, exploiting his known weakness for multi-directional listening devices. Then, Chu Nam-ho appeared in CEO Go's office, subtly mentioning Myung-suk overhearing a confidential conversation. Myung-suk then played his part, recounting how his father belittled CEO Go as a useless hired hand. He lamented the heartless discarding of loyal, long-serving employees. Hong Ka-yoon categorized each individual's weaknesses for the duo to exploit, instilling fear in their targets. After individually targeting their fears, they appealed to their shared fear of betrayal. Finally, they decided to preemptively strike, believing it better to confess first and receive leniency. The two young allies raced to the Central District Prosecutor's office to file complaints, securing Seo Yun's release. Kim Sung-ryang brought tofu to celebrate with Seo Yun, advising him to turn over a new leaf. Ha Kyung invited Seo Yun for a celebratory round of golf and a heart-to-heart conversation, leaving him touched. That night, Seo Yun joined forces with Kim Sung-ryang to deal with the remaining villains. The next day, a lawyer delivered the board's complaint to the chairman. The board appointed two overseers, Kim Sung-ryang and Seo Yun, now unlikely allies working together. Despite being covered in guilt, he didn't panic but called his senior for help. On the other end, Jo Min-young summoned the department head and director for a scolding, demanding their silence in exchange for a peaceful life. Terrified, the two senior managers whispered to each other, only to be startled by Seo Yun appearing behind them. Seo Yun urged them to fight for justice and principles, effectively turning them into his allies. Caught between two powerful forces, the two senior managers wished they were dead. That evening, the chairman presented his senior with a belated birthday gift from 3 months prior. Seeing the dazzling golden gift, the senior nodded in agreement. The chairman then handed over all the company's incriminating evidence to him for handling, secretly withholding the information about the intentional hit and run. Immediately after, two people holding crucial information against the chairman were detained. The detainer promised to keep them for 3 months, providing them with food and shelter. Meanwhile, the senior colleague told Ha Kyung about the chairman's shell corporation used for laundering money. They discussed this quietly, excluding Ma Young-suk, which annoyed him greatly. Ma Young-suk insisted he would handle the situation due to his foreign language skills. Ha Kyung reassured him that he shouldn't feel pressured, as this would corner the chairman. Ma Young-suk clarified that he wasn't acting out of a sense of justice or righteousness, but out of fear that his father was going too far to turn back. Elsewhere, the dynamic duo met with the person helping the chairman cover up his crimes. After some negotiation, he offered them a generous deal to drop their pursuit of the chairman. Kim Sung-ryang asked for 10 minutes to think, which made the man gloat, thinking he had secured the deal. Upon their return, they had tomato sauce smeared around their mouths, teasing the man. It turned out they had found a delicious street vendor selling tteokbokki spicy rice cakes and indulged, the $1,000 deal insignificant in comparison. Meanwhile, Ma Young-suk used his language skills to communicate with the foreign company. They confirmed the company's registration number but revealed a different phone number. Upon learning this, the chairman ordered the foreign company not to send any registration documents or materials. Ma Young-suk, after all his efforts, was furious at losing the big fish. Hong Ka-yoon, while investigating the chairman's cleanup crew, discovered that the person pulling the strings was Cha Gi-woo, the former party secretary general. Although he remained behind the scenes, he held significant influence. They planned to sever the connection between the powerful figure and the chairman. The first step involved infiltrating Cha Gi-woo's care facility by posing as staff. That evening, the dynamic duo visited a karaoke bar to discuss a collaboration with the owner, but she refused. Kim Sung-ryang then questioned her tax compliance, mentioning he had seen an illegal alcohol delivery truck entering earlier. Fearing penalties, the owner agreed to cooperate. While the old man was enjoying the company of young women, the duo, disguised as waiters, entered. At the hospital, as the chairman's wife stepped out, a man in black arrived to eliminate Chief Kim. However, Sang Tae was in the bed instead, and the attacker was quickly surrounded by investigators. He confessed that Jo Min-young was the one who ordered the hit. At home, Ma Young-suk overheard his father's phone call with the foreign company and became enraged. While his father was away, he impersonated the chairman, instructing the company to send the Shell Corporation's registration documents. The next day, Kim Sung-ryang confronted the senior manager with photos of his debauchery. The senior manager, compromised, agreed to terminate his cooperation with the chairman, leaving him with no options. Hong Ka-yoon seized the opportunity to gather all the chairman's incriminating documents and submitted them to her superiors, successfully obtaining an arrest warrant. Of course, Chairman Park had vanished from his office to avoid arrest. The young duo, Ma Young-suk and Seo Yun, rushed to the airport to intercept him before he could flee the country. At the last minute, Prosecutor Han Dong-dun arrived with an arrest warrant. Even when questioned, the chairman shamelessly shifted the blame for the attempted murder onto Jo Min-young. Witnessing this from afar, Kim Sung-ryung was furious. He taunted them, challenging them to find the embezzled funds as evidence. Back at the office, the team realized that the Swiss bank's high security made it impossible to trace the money. They could only catch him red-handed if he tried to withdraw it. Meanwhile, Director Go and Chief Lee, having just freed themselves from their restraints, were arrested by the police for forgery. Unrepentant, the chairman claimed to have no personal assets and denied any wrongdoing. With the chairman's arrest, investors bombarded the Business Affairs Department with worried calls, fearing the company's imminent bankruptcy. Knowing the company's dependence on him, the chairman had his people offer his wife a deal. He would use his assets to save the company if she took the fall for the embezzlement. He also offered Director Cho a reduced sentence and a comfortable life after prison in exchange for taking the blame for the attempted murder. Director Cho, in turn, demanded 50% of the money in the Swiss bank account, threatening to expose the chairman's order for the hit if refused. Ultimately, the chairman's wife refused, but Director Cho agreed to 40%. The chairman then summoned his beloved son, Myung-suk, and entrusted him with a Swiss bank account. Myung-suk, nervously holding the metaphorical hot potato, ultimately decided to transfer all the dirty money into the Business Affairs Department's account. The young duo promptly informed the chairman of this, along with the recording of him ordering the hit. It turned out Seo Yun had convinced Jo Min-young to cooperate to lessen her sentence. That night, the team celebrated, and Chief Lee, having recovered, spoke with his wife. Seo Yun finally acknowledged Kim Sung-ryung as the best chief in Korea. The next day, the court sentenced Chairman Park Hyun-doo to 22 years in prison and Jo Min-young to 7 years. His utter defeat left him enraged, and his family turned their backs on the greedy old man. Kim Sung-ryung received an offer to manage a nightclub in his hometown. Seo Yun submitted his resignation but was refused by the chairman's wife, who recognized him as the most suitable person for the job. Everyone was saddened by Chief Kim's departure. Everything eventually fell back into place. Chief Lee returned to the Business Affairs Department. Oh Gwang-suk officially joined the accounting department, and her senior received a well-deserved promotion. Back at the nightclub, Kim Sung-ryung, now a manager, constantly reminded his staff never to embezzle funds, especially from the cleaning staff. While his past was intertwined with embezzlement, he had transformed it into something cleaner and more ethical.